The crowd is 50,000 people, and they are all screaming your name. You cannot hear it. Your left ear has been ringing since your third fight, a high, thin sound that sits behind everything now. Permanent. The sand beneath your boots is dark red where the last man fell. You can feel your shin guard cutting into the wound that opened in the second round. You stopped caring about that 20 minutes ago. You have 30 seconds before the gate opens again. You roll your right shoulder, it clicks. You ignore it. This is not glory, this is a job, and the job is actively trying to kill you. History handed you the Gladiator as spectacle. The roaring arena, the dramatic thumb, the cinematic last stand of a free man who chose to fight on his own terms. Almost none of that is you. You were probably a slave, a convicted criminal, or a man so desperate that signing away every legal right you owned felt like the better option. The mythology is clean and photogenic, and almost entirely wrong. The biology underneath it is a different story, and that is the story nobody carves into the monuments. This is what it actually takes to be a Roman gladiator in real life. You did not walk into this. Something walked you into it. Maybe you were a soldier from a conquered territory, a warrior 3 weeks ago, now assessed like livestock. You are strong. You move well. Your bones look sound. You are routed to the Ludus, the gladiatorial training school, and the gate closes behind you. Maybe you stood in a Roman court and heard the words, damnatio ad gladium, condemnation to the sword. Your options collapse to one. You didn't choose the arena. The arena chose you through a magistrate because you were physically viable and legally disposable. Or maybe you signed voluntarily. You signed the auctoramentum, the gladiatorial contract, because you are in debt that isn't going away, or hungry in a way that has become structural. When you put your mark on that contract, you become what Roman law calls infames, a person stripped of all civil rights. You cannot own property. You cannot testify in court. You cannot marry without special dispensation from the people who now own your body and your schedule. What you get in exchange: a bed, 3 meals a day, medical care that most Roman civilians will never access, and a small cash payment for each fight you survive. You are structurally sound, and that is all they needed to know. The Ludus handles everything else. What that process does to your joints, your hearing, your nervous system, none of that appears anywhere in the contract you just signed. Your type is assigned on your second day. You don't get a vote. If you are built heavily, you become a myrmeo. You carry a rectangular scutum shield weighing 6 kilograms and a short gladius sword. With full armor, your total load sits near 15 kilograms. You wear it every training session, twice daily, 6 days a week. And your left forearm begins to change within the first year in ways you feel before you can see. This is Wolff's Law happening inside you in real time, the biological principle that bone remodels itself under mechanical stress. The radius and ulna in your left forearm thicken on the lateral walls to absorb the constant shield load. Bone analysis of gladiatorial remains from the Ephesus cemetery, the most complete skeletal record of gladiators ever excavated, published in 2014, confirmed this exact pattern. You are not getting stronger. You are getting permanently altered. Your right shoulder is deteriorating differently. Every time you drive the gladius forward, every strike, every reset, you are loading the supraspinatus tendon at the top of your rotator cuff. The Ephesus remains showed chronic tearing at that exact insertion point. Injuries that never fully healed because training never stopped long enough to allow it. By year 3, it is simply the baseline sensation of your right shoulder. You have stopped registering it as pain and started registering it as information. Your diet surprises you when you first arrive, mostly barley beans and vegetables, almost no meat. Roman sources call you hordeari, barley men, and they mean it as an insult. What you don't know is that the diet is entirely deliberate. High carbohydrate intake builds a thicker subcutaneous fat layer just beneath your skin. When a blade catches your arm in the arena, that layer reduces how deep it goes. Your wounds bleed visibly for the crowd. You are less likely to be immediately disabled by them. The ludus is feeding you strategically. The fat layer is a production decision. You are being maintained the way you maintain a tool you intend to use repeatedly. If you're still here, don't look away now. This is where Rome stops pretending. You hear the crowd before you see the light. The Colosseum at capacity holds between 50,000 and 80,000 people. Acoustic modeling of the original architecture puts crowd noise above 100 decibels at the arena floor. Sustained exposure above 85 decibels kills cochlear hair cells permanently. They do not regenerate. Every time you walk out onto that sand, you are making a permanent withdrawal from your hearing, one that will never be refunded. Your left ear is already compromised. You notice it as an asymmetry in the sounds arriving a fraction flatter, a fraction slower from that side. In a fight, that fraction matters. When you step through the gate, the smell hits first. Blood drying in Mediterranean heat, animal waste from beast fights earlier in the program, adrenal sweat your own, and the sharp smell of it from every man who stood in this spot today. Your cortisol is rising before you take your first full step into the light. Your grip on the gladius is conscious rather than automatic. You are already compensating. At 100 decibels of sustained crowd noise, your brain cannot cleanly process multiple auditory inputs at once. You cannot reliably hear your opponent's footwork, the subtle weight shift in the sand that tells you he is moving left before his body fully commits to it. You learn to compensate through peripheral vision and shadow geometry. You learned it because the fighters who didn't are no longer here to teach it. Your heart is at 175 beats per minute and climbing. At 185, your fine motor precision starts degrading. Your adjustments become coarser. At 190, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain handling tactical decisions, is competing with your limbic system for processing bandwidth. The limbic system wins this race every time. You are not thinking strategically by minute 8. You are running on pattern recognition, trained reflex, and the deep animal instruction to keep moving. The training was built for exactly this for the version of you that exists past minute 8. When the thinking has mostly left and only the body remains. After the fight, you go to the medicus. The care you receive is by ancient standards genuinely sophisticated, and this is not a kindness. It is an accounting decision. The lanista, the school owner who paid for you, has a direct financial interest in keeping you operational. You, dead, generate one payout, then nothing. You, living and winning, generate revenue across a career. Galen of Pergamon, one of the most significant physicians in Roman history, served the gladiators of Pergamon around 157 AD. He irrigated your wounds with wine, which was inadvertently effective as an antiseptic. He managed your joint injuries, monitored your diet, and tracked your recovery with a precision that most Roman civilians never experience from any physician in their lives. The methods he developed for working on your body influenced medicine for centuries after both he and his patients were gone. The result is a body being systematically destroyed at a managed pace. Your shoulder is treated. You return to training. It tears again at the same point. Chronic cortisol from repeated high-intensity combat is degrading your hippocampus, the brain structure governing memory and emotional regulation, and nobody in the 1st century AD has the framework to track it. You are sleeping worse. You are angrier at smaller provocations. You are losing the thread of the conversations you had that morning. You are patched. You are fed. You are returned to the product. Your career, if you survive long enough to call it that, lasts approximately 5 to 7 fights. Analysis of the Ephesus cemetery and stone-inscribed fight records suggests that first-year fighters face 20 to 30% annual mortality. Survive year 1 and your odds improve. Survive year 2 and you are a proven asset. The lanista is less inclined to risk you carelessly. The rudies is what you are working toward, the wooden sword presented upon retirement. Some fighters earn it from crowd demand after a performance so complete that 50,000 people collectively decide you have paid enough. Some receive it when your injury profile makes further combat economically unviable. You are freed when you are no longer useful. This is framed as honor. You accept that framing because thinking about it clearly costs more than you have left. You walk out into a civilian world that has no category for what you are. The infame's designation follows you even after formal release. The public office is closed. Respectable marriage is complicated. The skills you spent 5 years building optimized entirely for armed combat inside a specific enclosed space and transfer to almost nothing outside the arena walls. Some freed fighters go back to the ludus as trainers. Some go back as fighters voluntarily because the structure of that life is more navigable than the formless freedom waiting outside it. The arena was the whole world for long enough that the world outside it stopped making sense. The crowd that screamed your name does not follow you home. The sand that held your footprint is raked smooth before the gates close. You were the spectacle. You were never the point. You were not a warrior. You were a product built inside the ludus, maintained by medical staff whose loyalty was to the ledger, marketed to a public that wanted blood with its bread, and consumed until the asset was spent. Your skill was real. The courage it took to walk through that gate, knowing the arithmetic, knowing your left ear was a fraction deader each time, knowing the shoulder would click and you would ignore it, that was genuine and hard and not adequately described by anything the mythology offers. But the system was never interested in you. It was interested in your performance. The food kept you fighting. The medicine kept you profitable. The rudies retired you gracefully when you stopped being worth the upkeep. Your name on a contract you signed because the alternative was worse. Your forearm thickened by a shield you didn't choose. Your hearing, subtract 1 fight at a time. Your legal identity, surrendered at intake and never fully returned. And 50,000 people who forgot you by sundown. The arena built legends out of men it was destroying. That was always the business model. If you want to keep pulling back the curtain on the realities history decided to romanticize, subscribe now. Do you have what it takes to be a samurai in real life? Click and find out.